There were nights when I stared at my reflection for way too long, picking apart every little detail on my face. My nose felt crooked, my skin didn't look smooth, my smile looked weird when I practiced it, and in that silence one thought echoed louder than the rest: maybe I'm just not attractive enough to be loved. I didn't always feel that way, but over time, every rejection, every comment, every scroll through perfect faces online, it added another layer of self-doubt. Have you ever felt that? Like no matter how kind you are, how much you try to be a good person, you're still somehow unworthy, just because of how you look. If so, you're not alone. And today, I want to tell you something I wish someone told me earlier. You are not too ugly for a relationship. What's been lying to you isn't your mirror, it's your perception. And we're going to unpack that together. But first, take a breath. This one's going to go deep. And I promise by the end, you'll see yourself just a little differently. When I really sat down and asked myself, why do I feel this way about how I look, I realized something strange. It wasn't just my voice saying I wasn't attractive. It was a collection of voices gathered over time. I remembered that one classmate who said my ears looked weird in middle school, or that friend who always joked that I'd never get a date because of my awkward smile. Even the people I dated, some of them made comments about what they preferred, and I quietly internalized that I wasn't it. And then came social media. Flawless skin, filtered perfection, endless comparison. I didn't even notice I was doing it, but every scroll made me feel a little less worthy. But here's the thing I had to admit to myself. Not all of these beliefs started with me. Some of them were planted by other people's opinions. Some were rooted in random, hurtful moments, and some I kept watering every day by replaying them in my head. Have you ever hated something about yourself, but when you really thought about it, you couldn't even remember why? That's the moment I knew. This wasn't about my face or my body. It was about the meaning I attached to it. And once I realized that I had a choice, I could keep living through someone else's lens, or I could start cleaning it and seeing myself clearly. Once I realized that the way I saw myself was shaped by other people's words and my own interpretations, I started to wonder, can I unlearn it? Can I choose to believe something else? Turns out, yes, but it wasn't instant. It took 4 big mindset shifts that completely changed the way I saw myself. Shift 1, ask where the feeling came from. Every time I looked in the mirror and felt ugly, I paused and asked, wait, whose voice is this? Was it my own? Or was I just replaying something someone else had said? It shocked me how many of my insecurities weren't actually mine. Like, I once hated my nose because a kid said it looked too big in 7th grade. That one sentence lived rent-free in my mind for years, even though it wasn't true. Once I traced back the origin, it lost its power. Because how could I believe something for so long that wasn't even mine to begin with? Shift 2. Distinguish fact from opinion. Next, I learned to separate facts from feelings. Fact, I have a round face. Opinion, my face shape is unattractive. See the difference. One is neutral, the other is loaded with judgment. I started writing down the negative thoughts I had, and next to each one I asked, is this a fact or is this just something I've been taught to believe? And honestly, most of it was just opinion, assumptions, comparisons. Shift 3. Understand attraction is more than what you see. This one blew my mind. We've been taught that attraction is only visual, but science disagrees. In 2015, researchers found that physical attraction includes how someone sounds when they speak, their scent, their body language, the way they make you feel emotionally, and most of all, confidence. Have you ever met someone who didn't look like a model, but they had this energy, this glow, and suddenly you couldn't stop thinking about them? That's what real attraction looks like. And I realized if I kept shrinking and hiding, no one would ever see that side of me. Shift 4. What you believe becomes what you radiate. Here's the harsh truth I had to accept. When I hated myself, it showed. In the way I avoided eye contact. In how I walked like I wanted to disappear. In how I turned compliments into jokes. People didn't avoid me because I wasn't attractive. They avoided me because I didn't believe I was worthy, and that energy is contagious. But when I started holding myself differently, standing up straight, looking people in the eye, smiling even when I didn't feel perfect, people responded. Not because I changed my looks, but because I changed the way I saw myself, and that made all the difference. Changing how I saw myself wasn't about waking up one day and magically feeling confident. It was about tiny choices, repeated every day, even when my inner critic got loud. So here are a few things I did, not perfectly, but consistently, that helped me rebuild how I viewed myself. The first thing I did was slow down my inner voice. Every time a negative thought came up, like "you look awful today," I didn't just let it sit. I asked myself, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer was no, then I didn't deserve to say it to myself either. That question alone helped me start filtering what was allowed to live in my mind. I also began a small daily ritual: mirror journaling. Every morning, I'd look in the mirror and write one kind sentence to myself, not something fake like "I'm flawless," but something true like "I'm showing up today, even when it's hard," or "my eyes are tired, but they're kind." That simple habit taught me to see myself as more than just a body. It helped me reconnect with who I was being, not just what I looked like. Another big shift came when I started spending time with people who saw me, not just people who gave compliments, but people who made space for me to be myself, awkward moments and all. Their reflections of me became a mirror that was more accurate, more compassionate. And being around that made it easier to believe new things about myself. I also reduced exposure to comparison triggers, which for me meant unfollowing certain influencers, muting accounts that made me feel like I had to look a certain way, and reminding myself, what you feed your mind becomes your mirror. If I kept looking at polished, filtered, photoshopped bodies, I'd keep thinking I had to earn love by changing mine. And one more habit. I practiced non-appearance self-care, meaning I did things that made me feel good without focusing on looks. I stretched. I listened to music that made me feel alive. I finished little projects. I reached out to someone just to say hi. Each time I did, it reminded me, I am more than what I see. I am what I do. I am how I make others feel. All of these habits didn't erase my insecurity, but they gave me evidence. Evidence that I was growing, that I cared, that I was showing up, and over time, that's what built my confidence, not perfection, but practice. Understand this. I was never too ugly for a relationship. I was just too used to seeing myself through a mirror covered in dust. Dust from old insults, rejections, comparisons, and silence. I thought I had to change myself to be lovable, but what I really needed was to clean the mirror. And maybe that's where you are right now too, if you're watching this because you felt unlovable, unattractive, or not enough. Please hear this: you don't have to earn love by looking a certain way. You don't have to shrink yourself to be accepted. And you definitely don't have to change your appearance to be worthy. What you do deserve is to see yourself clearly, to be gentle with the parts of you that hurt, to tell yourself the truth that your beauty was never gone. It was just buried under someone else's story. So today, take one small step. Write one kind sentence to yourself. Say something out loud you wish someone else would say, or just look in the mirror and not criticize. Let that be enough for today. And if this video spoke to something inside you, I'd love to hear it in the comments. What's one thing you're learning to see differently about yourself? Maybe your story will help someone else feel a little less alone. And as always, if you found comfort in this, please like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you won't miss what's coming next. This space is for you. You're not broken. You're becoming.